Welcome to the ATA Podcast. I'm your host, Matt Baird, and you're listening to Inside Specialization, our series on the what, why, and how of specializing in a specific field of translation or interpreting. In each episode, members of ATA's Professional Development Committee will interview translation and interpreting specialists. They'll ask about what the work entails, what skills are needed, the pros and cons, and so much more. The goal is to showcase the variety of career paths in translation and interpreting and help working professionals and students understand what's out there, how they can get started, and what they need to succeed. Specialization is arguably the best way to strengthen your translation and interpreting business and stand out from the crowd. We're hoping to bring you one episode a month, and we hope you'll join us on this informative journey. This podcast is brought to you by the American Translators Association. If you'd like to know more about ATA, we'll have some information at the end of the show. All right, now over to the PD Committee and this edition of Inside Specialization.
Hi everyone, this is Andie Ho. I'm back with another interview, this time with Amanda Williams. Amanda is an ATA certified freelance French to English translator specialized in international trade, business, and financial translation. Based in Marietta, Georgia, she has over 11 years of experience translating corporate communications, financial statements, press releases, and much more. Her translations are used by investors and corporations around the world. Amanda has a former career working for one of the largest ocean importers in the United States, where she held a variety of roles. And she is now a member of the ATA, or has been for a long time, I should say, where she has been active in the literary division. And she has also served on the board of the Atlanta Association of Interpreters and Translators. You can find her on Twitter as the Adorkable Translator, which I think is hilarious and cute. That's at adorkable_trans. Or visit her website at www.mirrorimagetranslations.com. Welcome, Amanda. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, you have a very impressive background in international trade. How did you make the transition to translating for it?
So I kind of always wanted to be a translator or work in international business. The things kind of melded together. After I graduated college, I had a major in French and a minor in Spanish. And I definitely knew I didn't want to be a teacher. So I just don't have the patience with children. Thankfully, I do with my son, but not a large group. So I was recruited to work for a Chilean wood products manufacturer. And that was right out of college. So I started out working in inside sales for a couple of years. And then I moved to operations. And in that department, I kind of managed the company's third-party logistics providers in a specific region I was assigned to. And just by happenstance, I guess, I became the person who put out fires, and that was usually customs related. So anytime a bill of lading was put on customs hold or APHIS hold, APHIS is the organization in charge of wood products and plants and things like that. Either organization would put wood products on hold to either APHIS would do it to check for mold or pests, or to make sure the company wasn't importing endangered wood instead of the normal pine that we said we were bringing in. And customs would do it just to make sure that we were claiming the right type of wood, using the right tariff and things like that. I did that for a few years. And one day, customs came knocking on the door and they said, "Hey, guess what? We see that you file every single container under either this free trade agreement or this other free trade agreement, the Chile free trade agreement or the generalized system of preferences. And you bring in 2,000 containers a month, which is a lot to not pay duties on. So we're going to conduct a focused assessment on your company," which is the most intense level of audit that U.S. Customs does. So be ready. In a couple of weeks, we're starting. And the company was like, "Oh, hey, guess what, Amanda? You've been promoted. You're now trade compliance manager. And get ready because customs is coming in a couple of weeks to audit us." So that was fun. I spent a couple of years managing that audit single-handedly. I had to learn a lot of things during that period of time, including accounting and finance. I spent years just trying to prove to U.S. Customs that we were eligible for those 2 free trade agreements, and we did not have to pay duties on any container we brought in from either Argentina or Chile. And that was such a rigorous process that, I just decided, this is exhausting. I mean, I love the work, but I'm not really great at schmoozing and corporate politics and making sure I ask the right person how they're doing and how their family's doing a certain number of times a week so that I get a raise or a promotion at the right time. And I'm just a sit down, do your work, get it done, and leave kind of person. And so in the background of all of that I was just telling you about, I went to grad school for translation, French to English translation. And then I thought of a company name and started building a website and I joined the Georgia chapter of the ATA, the Atlanta Association of Interpreters and Translators. And I just built a company in the background. And after the audit was over, I put in my notice and just set off on this journey that I've been on for 11 years. So I don't regret a thing. I loved working at that company. Overall, I just gained so much, and it made me a tough business person. I know how to navigate a lot of things, and that's my journey, and I'm grateful for it.
Wow. That sounds like a true trial by fire.
Yes. I kind of say that I went to the school of hard knocks.
So then do you feel like a translator who wants to translate for the international trade industry, do they need your trial by fire background to succeed? Or is this something that anyone can pick up and learn and get better at?
I think that there are some universities in Tennessee that have fantastic programs in logistics, and there are some programs with great postgraduate programs in supply chain and logistics. But to be honest, there's really nothing like being at work, knowing that you have 20 containers on one bill of lading sitting at the Port of Long Beach. You've got 1 day left for your third-party logistics provider to pick them up by the end of today. That you don't learn at school, the sense of urgency. And but for terminology and just, learning overall how it works and learning, like I said, the terminology on the page, sure, you can go to school and you can learn those things. But I think one of the things that makes me a good translator is that, I do have that sense of urgency because I lived it.
So from the translation side, what are some typical types of projects for that industry, and who are your typical clients?
So I've seen a lot of different things that fall under international trade. It's really varied. And, from your last question, you don't even have to work in exactly what I did. International trade is so vast. You could have a position anywhere and get a view of what international trade is. But I've translated inventory management websites, products to make inventory counts easier, like scanners. I've translated warehouse automation brochures. Every once in a while I'll see a bill of lading, but most bill of ladings have English on them automatically. I've translated contracts that relate to the ports themselves, like service agreements between a port and a company that's going to start using a port. And I've seen articles about a new technology that's going to be implemented at a port. I've seen, news articles announcing that a port's going to be built somewhere, things like that.
Wow. So that sounds extremely varied.
Yeah.
So how do you keep up then with the industry with so many different aspects and keep your specialization strong?
Well, it's a subject matter that interests me already. So it's not really something that I feel like is a burden that I have to keep up with. I'm just interested in it anyway. So I subscribe to a ton of different trade specific newsletters and communications, like the Journal of Commerce. I have a couple good customs brokers that I've subscribed to since, it's been 11 years, like since I left. And they send out daily or weekly updates on what's going on in the world of customs, which that's been crazy because like during the Trump era when he was, doing the trade war and putting the tariffs on all these different products from different countries, like that was a lot to keep up with. And freight specific subscriptions too, like Freight Waves and American Shipper. Like they keep me up to date on what's happening in the supply chain, which is a disaster right now. But this kind of stuff interests me. So like I said, I just read this stuff because I want to, and it has the double purpose of keeping me up to date at the same time. So
it pays to be a nerd.
Yeah, right.
So what other skills besides the obvious does a translator need for this specialization for international trade?
Yeah, so in this area, you really have to be a convincing salesman because with international trade, logistics, supply chain specifically, you're dealing with companies that have tons of bilingual employees already. And a lot of them think that their employees can translate whatever they need translating. And it's really tough to convince them otherwise.
Is this an area that machine translation has touched at all? Have you found that to be the case?
I haven't gone out and looked for that specifically, and none of that has fallen on my desk. But, I would say if anything, definitely, like your bilingual person that doesn't have training in translation has definitely disrupted this industry.
What do you like the most about translating for international trade?
My favorite thing is being able to understand the document like on a profound level, and like being able to know what's going on in the overall context, like stuff that's not even being talked about in the document, like I can get the overall picture of everything, and words that aren't even said in the document, like I might know the right word, but it's not the words that are in the French. That's like what a truly specialized translator can do, where like the words are in French and you might translate it into English and it's not quite, like you translated it, but no, there's a specialty word in logistics that is, demurrage or picking up a container and unloading it is called draying and stripping. But like someone who doesn't know that might say picking up the container and unloading it,
So going beyond what the source text says to determine what it wants to say.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yes. Like really having in-depth knowledge, which you do in financial translation too, it's just having like a profound knowledge and having seen everything too. Like I guess with financial, it's all conceptual basically, but with logistics, like I've seen containers being unloaded. I have been in warehouses. I have seen stacked units of plywood and stuff on top of each other. I have been inside a container vessel. I have walked on a port property before, and so that makes it all very real.
All right. So opposite question, what do you like least about translating that specialization?
So I had to think about this for a long time. I guess the thing I like least is when I go to, I attend trade shows for, that industry. And when you're talking to these men, they're just very cocky about not needing professional services. And that's really when I wish I could channel Chris Durbin or, someone who's got a fantastic sales skills, to convince someone face to face in person that no, they really do need a professional, someone who does know just as much as their employee, but also has, training in translation. That's an area I wish I could improve myself.
So that's interesting. Is this a male-dominated field?
Yes.
Okay. Well, final question. Is there anything else that our listeners should know? Anything you want them to take away specifically?
Yeah, with any specialization, you're never going to know everything. And I don't claim to know everything about international trade and logistics. So never stop learning.
Good advice for anyone. Well, thank you so much, Amanda, for your time and your expertise. You've given us a lot of information and food for thought. Amanda has also written at least one article on this topic for the FLD, the French Language Division. If you just Google international trade as a translation specialization and Amanda Williams' name, that'll come up. And you'll find a whole article with all sorts of information about the industry and things you need to know if you're interested in specializing in international trade. So thank you very much, Amanda, for chatting with us today.
You're welcome. I hope I didn't overload.
Well, it was great. Thanks.
Okay. Sure.
You've been listening to Inside Specialization, our series on the what, why, and how of specializing in a specific field of translation or interpreting. Big thanks to everyone involved in the production of this episode. ATA's PD committee developed and coordinated the interview. Mixing and editing was done by Derek Platts. Mary David and Rashawn Paccarel at ATA headquarters provided editorial and technical support. Now, if you learned anything new in today's podcast, I bet there's somebody out there who would like to know it too. Don't be stingy. Tell them about us. I've gotten to know so many great podcasts that way. I promise they'll thank you for it. And if you're not an ATA member, listen up. I've been a member for over 20 years. I can honestly say that ATA launched my freelance career, and I've never looked back. Nowadays, the demand for translators and interpreters is at an all-time high, but finding quality work isn't easy. ATA membership can make a difference. And ATA isn't just for translators or interpreters. Individuals, companies, and organizations can become members. We have teachers, professors, hospital administrators, language company owners, technology developers, as well as language companies, universities, hospitals, and government agencies. Go to ATA's website, atanet.org, for details. Or check out past episodes of this podcast where we talk about the benefits of membership and what's currently happening in the association. Thanks again for listening, everyone. Talk to you again soon.